Now, welcome to our today's science lesson, that is standard 8. Today it's on 20th of August 2020. Now, today we are going to discuss a subtopic still on plants, but now we are going to talk about the adaptation of plants to their different environments. Now, we discussed plants from the start. We discussed types of plants, where we discussed crops. We discussed types of crops, then we discussed weeds. Last time we discussed pests and their effects to plants. But now today we are going to discuss on how now these crops or plants, they adapt to various environments. Because we have those plants that grow in desert regions, we have those that grow in wet areas or water, then we have those that grow in the normal conditions. But now how do they survive, or how do they come up with a mechanism that helps them to survive in those environments? Now, if somebody asks you to define the definition of adaptation, the adaptation is just the mechanism that an animal or a plant develops so that now it can survive in the habitat that it survives. For example, we said a habitat, where we said a habitat is just a home of living organisms. Now in that habitat, we have some conditions that are now not favorable or favorable to those animals. Now if the conditions are not favorable, it means the plant has to come up with a mechanism that it will help them to now grow and also to reproduce and come up with new plants. Now directly we'll have the types of habitats. Now we have three main habitats, where we have those that are in dry areas. We have dry areas, that is a habitat. Then we have those wet areas, and also we have those normal areas. Now when you talk of dry areas, this is areas that there is little or no water. Then when you talk of wet areas, this is areas that has a lot of water, and this is normal conditions, that is both there is water and also we have sunshine. There is a balancing system, that is normal condition. And also under normal, we talk of there is normal soil that helps for the growth of the plant. Now, we will discuss adaptation of those plants that are found in dry areas. Now, the plants that are found in dry areas, their name is mainly called, they are xerophytes. Now, if somebody asks you to give those plants that are planted or they grow in dry areas, you say they are xerophytes. Now, the xerophytes survives in dry areas. Now, what are examples of xerophytes? They are very common in this area of ours. Now, we have cactus, we have acacia, we have sisal, and also we have camphobial and others. Now, you have to understand the characteristics, and of which you are very advantaged that you have those plants within you, that's around Garissa here. Now, when you look at this plant here, this plant has some characteristics that help it to survive within these conditions, which are the dry areas. Now, number one, we say that plant has a deep, widespread roots. It has a deep, widespread roots. When you look at this plant, it's a very small plant, it's still growing, but now when you look at its roots, the root starts from here until here. This means this root is very deep. Why is the root deep? The root is deep so that now it can trap or absorb water from the underground. We have water at a very deep region, where now if this is the ground, now the root has to grow very deep so that now it can absorb that water. We say it is widespread. Why do we say the roots are widespread? We may get that a plant is here. This plant has roots, that is a taproot, but now it has some lateral roots. These lateral roots are very widespread. Why? So that now it can absorb that water that is very far from that plant. That's why it has a widespread roots. We move, it also have a tuber. We have those tubers, for example, of cassava. The cassavas or the tubers, they have those roots so that now they can store food, and also they can store water. That is the presence of having a root tubers. Now, the second adaptation of those plants that are found in dry regions, they have stems that are that can store water, and those stems are mostly known as the succulent stems. Now, these plants have a succulent stem. Why do you say a succulent stem? For example, this is a part of the stem of a certain plant, that is maybe a cactus. Now this is a cactus branch. Now this plant here, when you look at its stem, it is succulent. It is succulent, why? So that now it can store water. This water is used during dry seasons. Now it is also have a fleshy stem. When you look here, This plant is not woody, it is fleshy. You can cut it, so this is very soft. So we say it is a fleshy stem. This fleshy stem still is just for storage of water. Now it has waxy cuticle. We say it has a thick waxy cuticle. Why does it have a thick waxy cuticle? Number one, it is to reflect the light. Why do it reflect light? When the lights are reflected, it means it reduces the rate of evaporation and also reduces the rate of transpiration, of which he talked about evaporation. This is just the way water evaporates, water loss from the surface of the leaves, that is evaporation. But when you say water loss from the leaves, direct from the leaves, that is transpiration. But from the surfaces, it is evaporation. Now, we move to examples of those plants that have fleshy stems are cactus, which have also a green stem. We'll talk about having what is the importance of these plants having green stem when we move to other properties. Now, why do cactus plant have a fleshy stem and also a green stem? Number one, this is for storage of water. Number two, it is for photosynthesis. And number three, it is to prevent loss of water. So if somebody asks you the importance of a cactus plant having a thick and succulent stem, storage of water, photosynthesis because of the green color, which is chlorophyll, then it also has a preventing water loss, that is through storage. Now, we move to the third characteristics or adaptation of these plants in dry region. We say they have reduced size of leaves. They have reduced size of leaves. When you look at this plant, the leaves are very small, very tiny, and also, on addition, when we're talking about leaves, we say it has also thorny. The leaves are thorny. Why do we say the leaves are thorny? These thorny leaves, they reduce the surface area so that now this plant cannot lose a lot of water through transpiration. So that's why now the plants that are found in dry regions, they must have thorny, and also they should have smaller leaves so that now to reduce the surface area to be exposed to the environment for loss of water. Also, these thorny leaves, they also help in protection of these plants to other enemies. Now these enemies includes animal. If the animal come to destroy this plant, it will be difficult because of the presence of these thorny leaves. So the thorny leaves are number one, to reduce loss of water. Number two, it is for protection against the enemies. Number three, still under the reduced surfaces, we say it has fewer stomata on the upper surface. Now, when you observe the upper surface of a dry leaf, that is plants that are found in dry regions, you may get that on the upper surfaces, it has very small air spaces. Those which we call them stomatas. Now, on the upper surface, they have less stomatas or fewer stomatas. That is now, but on the lower side, they have more stomatas. That is for gaseous exchange. Now, we have those plants that are found still on dry regions, but now they also have adaptation, which we say they shed leaves. Shedding of leaves is just after some time you get that a plant removes a leaf, so that now you may think a plant has dried up, but it's not dry. It's just an adaptation that helps it to survive in that region. And mainly, these plants shed their leaves during dry season. When there is dry season is when the plants shed off their leaves. And the plants that shed their leaves during dry season are called the deciduous plants. Somebody can ask you, plants that lose water, they lose their leaves during dry region, that is called the deciduous plants. Now, we move to another characteristics, that is characteristics number 6. We have those plants that are found in dry season, but now the dry region, but now they fold their leaves. Folding, it means if this is the leaf of this plant, now it folds. Folding is just the presence of it folds, so that now when it folds, number one, the presence of the plant's folding is number one, just to trap the moisture, so that this moisture helps it now not to lose more water through transpiration and evaporation. And also it folds the leaves so that now it can hide the stomatas. When it hides the stomatas, it means it reduces the surface area for transpiration. Also, it folds the leaves so that now it cannot expose the stomata to direct sunlight. When the leaves are directly to direct sunlight, it increases the heating. When it increases the heating in the water that are inside the leaf, this causes now the leaves to lose a lot of water. Now, the other characteristics or adaptation of plants that are found in these dry regions, we say they have that we call the dormancy. Dormancy, this is a step where now this plant, it is now inactive. It is not working. It has developed that inactiveness. That is, the transpiration has stopped. Other properties of plants have stopped working, so that now it can now survive during the dry season. When the time comes for wet time, you may get that these plants now start again sprouting. You get now that this is the seeds of that plant. Now it's dormant during dry season, but immediately we have some rains, you get that now the plant starts sprouting and growing up again. That is what we call, they have what we call dormancy. Then we have the green stem. Already I've described the green stem. The presence of green stem mostly in cactus. This is a stem. Now the presence of this green stem is just the presence of chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll, they helps in the photosynthesis, and we define photosynthesis being a process by which green plants, they manufacture their own food through what we call photosynthesis. Now, the other characteristics of dry seasons or dry plants, we say they have sunken stomata. What is sunken stomata? When you say of sunken stomata, these are hidden inside and very small depressions, that now reduces the rate of water loss. And most of these characteristics of dry seasons plants, they are just to reduce the water loss. Now also they have sunken stomata just to reduce water loss, and also this sunken stomata, it reduces the number of stomata that are exposed to environment, hence reducing water loss. Now we have the 10th characteristics or adaptation of these plants, where we say now they have shiny and slivery leaves. The shininess and smoothness or sliveriness of the leaf, this one, it just helps to reflect a lot of light. When we talk of reflection, this is the bouncing back of light. Now, when the light bounces back, it means the leaf will not lose a lot of water. The leaf will not have a lot of heat to it. Hence, when the leaf is not heated up, it means there is less evaporation. So the shininess of the sliverless of the leaf is just for the reduction of water loss. Now, we have those plants that are adapted to wet regions, that is wet areas. Now, they also have their own characteristics. Now, most of these characteristics of plants that are found in wet areas, they are the opposite of characteristics of those plants that are found in dry areas. When you say, for example, these plants that are found in wet areas are called what we call, they are the hydrophytes. Hydrophytes, they grow in wet regions, and wet areas, they include either equatorial forests, it may be along rivers, it may be along lakes, it may be along water shores, and also swamps and marshes. Now, we go direct to the adaptation of those plants. Examples of those plants include mangrove plants, we have the water lily plant, we have rice, and also we have the water hyacinths. Now, what are the characteristics of these plants? The adaptation number one of plants that are found in wet areas, we say they have broad leaves. The broadness of the leaf, that one increases surface area, so that now this plant here can lose a lot of water. There is a lot of water in the environment, hence they must have a lot of transpiration and also a lot of evaporation, hence the broadness of the leaf. We move to the second adaptation, where they have shallow roots. What is the presence of the shallow roots? On the dry season, we say they have deep and widespread leaves, but here we are talking of the shallowness of the leaf. Now, why? The shallowness of the root is because of now water is already available in the environment. Hence, there is no need for the plants to have a deeper roots. Now, the other importance is just for absorption. That's to reduce absorption. So that now if the water, this is water in the environment, and this is a plant. Now, this is a plant that, for example, maybe it would be a water lily. Now, this water lily has just roots that are just on the surface. They don't grow to going deep because of the presence of water just near the roots. Now, this one reduces the water absorption because it has to also lose a lot of water, hence reducing water absorption. Now, it also have what we call the feathery or feathery roots. Feathery roots, it's feathery and hairy roots. These feathery and they help in now the balancing. If this is water, for example in an ocean, this is water, this plant has to develop roots that will help it to balance on the surface of water. If the roots will not be feathery, it means this plant will have to sink. But now it grows this feathery leaf so that now it can balance on the surfaces of water. Now next, we have those that have the breathing roots. During our time, the time of discussing the type of roots, we said we have those plants that have breathing roots, and these plants, they include the mangrove. Mangrove plants have breathing roots. These breathing roots help in exchange of air, which is oxygen. That's the exchange of air, carbon dioxide and oxygen. The examples of those plants, that is the mangrove plants. Then we have those plants that have now no roots. They don't have roots at all. For example, the butterwort. The butterwort, they lack roots because now the water is still available, and the function of roots is to absorb water. Now if the plant has already water, it has no roots. For example, that's the butterwort. The other adaptation, they have leafy shoots. Leafy means a lot of leaves or many leaves. So we talk of leafy shoots because when it has many leaves, that one encourages a lot of water loss. The water loss, we said it is lost through stomatas. When it has many leaves, it has many stomatas, hence increased rate of water. Then we have thin cuticle. On the dry season, we said they have thick cuticle, but here it is thin. Why thin? This one just increases the surface area for water loss. It has thin cuticle so that it increases surface area for water loss. It has increased number of stomatas. Just these stomatas, they remain open throughout. Why? This one now, it increases also the surface area just for the water loss, because this plant has a lot of water surrounding it. It has to absorb and also has to lose a lot of water so that it gives chance to other water to move up. Now, the other adaptation of plants that are found in the dry, wet seasons, we say they have flexible stems. Example is water lily. Water lily has a very flexible stem. Why? This plant is grown in a water season. Now, if we have waves of water moving, if we have waves, for example, in oceans or lakes, we have waves coming from this side, and this plant is same is here. If this plant will not go on the direction of the waves, that means the stems of this plant will break. Now, for it to avoid the breaking of this stem, it has now to have that plant that is flexible. It can move. If the waves goes this side, it moves to that side. If the wave turns to this side, it also turns to that side. So the flexible stems just helps to prevent the breaking of the stem. Now, we have the third last adaptation of the plants that are found in wet regions. They have what we call the air sacs. What's the function of air sacs? Just to keep air, so that now the oxygen can be, the oxygen amount in the leaf can be a lot. This one increases now the plants now to float. The plant has to keep floating on the water. Now, the presence of air sacs helps the plant to continue floating on the water. Number 8, we talk of the waxy and hairy leaf. This one, it just helps now to maintain the leaf to be on the surface. Now this, it also helps in just in floating because of the waxiness of the leaf. That helps it in floating. Now, it has floating flowers. Floating flowers, why? If the flowers will not float on water, it means we will not have what we call reproduction. Then the plants will not carry out reproduction. Now they are floating so that now we can have that advantage of pollination and also fertilization, hence reproduction in those plants that are found in water regions. Now we have the last one, where now we talk about the plants that are found in the normal areas and normal soils. We have those plants that grow around us, that's in the normal regions, that's normal water regions. There's no much water region, and also we don't have a lot of sunshine or a lot of heat in the environment. Those plants that grow in such an environment are what we call now mesophytes. Mesophytes, examples of mesophytes includes beans, maize, and also potatoes, etc. Those are just plants that grow within our regions. And these plants, they have just, most of them, they may have some characteristics that are in dry regions, and also they may contain characteristics that are found in the wet region. Now those plants, if you look at the adaptation of the, for example, maize plants, it has some leaves that are parallel, they have parallel venation, and also it is very sharp. For example, this is a maize plant and this is the leaf of a maize plant. And also we have that bean plant. Now when you look at the differences between a maize plant leaf and a bean plant leaf, they may have different characteristics, but now these ones, it just helps them to survive in their condition, because in this area we have a condition where at a time we have a lot of rain, at a time we have a lot of sunshine, so they do vary according to their conditions that are necessary in the environment. Now in summary, you have to understand the adaptations of various plants, and you have to understand the plants that grow in these various habitats. You have to understand the definition of the habitats. This one we say they are xerophytes. So you must understand all their adaptations. After understanding the adaptation of these plants, somebody can come up with a question and ask you to give the adaptation of plants that are found in a dry region or a dry areas, or give adaptation of plants that are found in wet areas, or plants that are found in normal conditions. You may be asked to give the examples of those plants that grow in wet areas, in dry areas, and also in those areas that have normal conditions. So in summary, you should understand all that, so that in the exams you may not have a lot of problem. Otherwise, thank you very much, and let's meet next time, inshallah.